Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about homeschooling in Spain and what I think about it. This is kind of a hot topic, I know that, but it's also very popular in the Facebook groups. People who are considering moving to Spain want to know if they can continue homeschooling here. And so that's what I'm going to get into. My opinion of it, my experience with it, and what I ultimately think about it. Before I do that, I'm going to open this package that I got from an antique shop by Alfajara Castle, by the Palace Alfajara Palace, Palacio de Alfajara. Is that how you say it? We bought this a while ago, but there's an antique shop there that's an actual bunker where they used to run from the antique shop during the war. And she has amazing history there and she can tell you all about it, but I bought this from there a while back and it's just been sitting on my shelf. So today I'm going to open it. I don't even remember what it is that I bought and show you what it is. So we have a puente right now in Spain for Constitution Day. So I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's good timing to open up something from a Civil War bunker on Constitution Day. It's all wrapped up in here. Oh, I think it's birds. If you like antiquing and you want to know if there's antique shops here, there definitely are. Oh, Josiah, these are some coins that you bought.
I wanted. Wait, why did I not get those when I first bought it 3 months ago?
These are the coins that you bought there. Here you go.
Oh, the bird. I want a bird.
And then we bought, are these the ones you bought or I bought? I bought these?
No, I think that you, can I get them?
I couldn't tell you how much these cost, but they probably weren't very much. Anyway, tres patos, 3 ducks. Okay, so as I said, it's a puente. A puente is a long weekend. And it's the December puente. So if you don't know, almost every holiday in Spain, especially in Zaragoza, sometimes uniquely to Zaragoza, but I think this is a countrywide situation. During the Christmas holidays, you will find a lot of roscon, okay? Normally, I get the roscon with the cream, but last year I was told that the roscon with the cream, we have a layer of roscon with the cream and then more roscon, is actually not the authentic one. Now, you're gonna see that we've already eaten half of this, but there's no cream inside of it, so there's nothing. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna find a toy in here, but normally you might find a little treasure inside whenever you cut it open. And I think the tradition is that whoever finds that has to buy the next one or pay for the current one or something like that. But anyways, this one's actually coconut. And so I'm gonna say that it's probably not traditional either, but it's more traditional because it doesn't have the cream, as far as I understand from what I've been told by people who are from here. Okay, so I'm gonna put my birds right here behind me so they can watch my video. Very important. And then I'm going to get into the topic. Okay, so homeschooling in Spain. You may have heard recently that the Spanish population has increased to almost 50 million. Over 49 million people are here. Highest population they've ever had in the country. And it's been driven by immigration. If you're in the Facebook groups, then this is not a surprise to you because you see the popularity increasing right alongside, you know, they're coming from every country, from the United States, from Britain, even from Australia, from Mexico, from Honduras, from South America. I mean, from everywhere, right? Canada. I see tons of posts from everywhere. And the most popular topic for certain people coming from certain countries where there's a lot of educational freedom and the ability to homeschool is, can I homeschool in Spain? Or can't I use an umbrella school? Or can I do this? Can I, how old do you have to be in school? Like, can I get by with it? Where can I live? What can I do? You really can't. And I'm going to explain to you why that is my opinion. So depending on who you ask, you may be told, no, you cannot. Yes, you absolutely can. Or it's a gray area. Depending on your circumstances is going to depend on the answer to the question. So let me explain. If you're a Spanish citizen, then it's much easier to hide. If you're not a Spanish citizen, then that's when things can get complicated, especially if you need a residency visa. So the conflict with homeschooling in Spain is that the Constitution actually says that parents, families have the freedom to school how they want. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to read it word to word, but I'll put a link in the description to the Constitution of Spain and you can look at it yourself. It'll be in English. The problem with that article in the Constitution is that they went and made an education law that says the education has to be in person, which means you have to be somewhere with someone in person being educated. You can't be at home being educated online. You can't be with your parents being educated. You have to be educated in a place in person with other people, right? Like in school, that's the implication. So this is why people will say it's a gray area, because the Constitution says you can do what you want, basically, I'm summarizing, and the law says you cannot. So people who are pro homeschooling in Spain and will tell you that you can and that it's totally legal say that because of the Constitution. And then they say, well, the government made a law that doesn't match the Constitution, so it's an unconstitutional law. And there's even an organization that's working to change the law. I'm going to put a link to them in the description. It's called ALE, and I want to make sure that I read this correctly. Okay, so ALE stands for the Asociación por la Libre Educación, the Association for Free Education. They are a paid group. You pay to join the group. You will get access to a forum. I've mentioned this in previous videos about homeschooling in Spain from a few years ago. And then that will give you an idea of what things are like on the ground here for families, mostly Spanish, who are homeschooling. That'll help you to see what the reality is. What happens when someone calls social services on you? So there lies the key for me. If someone can call social services on me for something that I'm doing, then I shouldn't be doing it. It's obviously not legal. So that's my point. If social services can be called, then I'm not doing something that the law says I should do. Now here's the caveat. As with everything else in Spain, it's left up to interpretation depending on where you are. So with immigration, it depends on which consulate that you go to. That tells you the rules that you have to follow to be able to get the visa. When you're renewing your visa, which immigration office, which region are you in? That's telling you what specific requirements they want of you to continue your visa. Now, when it comes to this, every region can make their own rules. Some regions are known for not being friendly with people who are home educating. And if they get a report that you're home educating, that your kids are not going to school, then they will come and visit you, or they will send a letter to you telling you to come and visit them. But there are some regions where they don't necessarily do it in that way, or they will come and visit you. And as long as you can show that you're educating and you're keeping a portfolio and you can show that you're doing everything right, then they'll say, okay, you're fine. That's their interpretation. That's what their region has told them to do, even though the whole government of Spain does not say that as a whole. The difficulty comes in with what is your situation. If you're coming into Spain on a visa, then you've got usually, the work visa, the high qualified visa, the NLV, and the DMV. I'm going to talk about the digital nomad visa and the non-lucrative visa. If you're getting the non-lucrative visa, there are some consulates that require you to show proof of school enrollment just to get the initial visa. I can tell you for sure that when you go to renew that visa, the extranjeros office, the immigration office, is going to ask you to provide in Mercurio, in your application for the renewal, they're going to ask you to provide proof of registration. So you're absolutely going to have to be registered in a school. This is what we did the first couple of years that we lived here. I had my kid enrolled in a school that was a legal school and registered, and I met their requirements, and that's how we were able to do it. He just didn't go to school there every day. He went maybe once a week, and then we did our own work at home, and that was how we got by with it. But it was very secretive. It was like we stayed inside during school hours, and that's what your typical home educator does in Spain. Now, if you're coming in on the DNV, the digital nomad visa, then you could have a little bit more leeway than someone on the non-lucrative visa. And the reason is that you can come in on the tourist visa first to Spain, and then you're not a legal resident. And then you go and apply. You have the 90 days, once you get here to apply before your 90 days are up. That's a window of time where your kids are not in school, and most likely you're not going to have a big issue. You could, but most likely you're not. And then you need the padrón to register in school anyways, right? So you need to go apply for the DMV to get your NIE number. You have to be approved to get the NIE number. You have to get a lease. You need the NIE number for getting the lease, and then you have to have the lease to get the padrón, and then you need the padrón to get into school. That's the empadronamiento, where you go and register with the local census where you're living, and you get a document. It's called the padrón for short, and you use that to enroll in school. So you can see how this creates type of wiggle room or some extra space for you, that if you do your timing right, you could maybe work like from September to December, where you don't actually put your kids in school, and you give them time. In your mind, you're giving them time to adapt to being in a new country. The problem is that they get bored. They don't have a lot to do, and it's better, in my opinion, to just jump right into it and get into school and get into a routine and start adapting to the culture. Now, I will tell you one key point. If you think that there is a possibility that you would want to homeschool in the future, and you want to have all your bases covered, you absolutely do not want to enroll in the publicly funded system. If you go into a concertado or a public school, when you pull them out, they're going to come knocking on your door. The school has an absenteeism program. The government does, that they enforce, and that the schools have to call. Private schools are less likely to make that phone call. Not saying that they won't, but it's something to know that when you start at a school, even if it's a private school, you could ask, how do you treat absenteeism? But for sure, if you're in the public system, a concertado or strictly a purely public school, and you pull them out, you're going to get asked questions, and you're going to basically need to leave the country and then return so that you can fill out withdrawal paperwork saying that you're leaving. Some people have had luck by just saying that they're moving to another region. But as a foreigner, you do have, it's not unusual for a foreigner to say, I'm leaving the country now, because this isn't your home, right? So you can say, we're moving, and you fill out the withdrawal paperwork and you leave the country. Stay out for a couple of weeks, stay out for a month, and then return. Probably not to your same region, not to your same neighborhood, not to where you're going to see the same people from that school, to another area. And then that's you have to consider the change that you're going to put your kids through and yourself through with that move. Now, obviously, if you're a Spanish citizen or you're an EU citizen, a citizen from another country in the EU, your situation is different. You can get by with things a lot easier here. You still need to make sure that you don't put your kids in the public system for the same reasons as everyone else, but you don't have immigration to report to about whether or not your kids are in school. And what Spanish citizens do sometimes is they just don't put their children on the padrón so that they're less likely to be asked. The problem with not going to school here and doing things this way is that you're in hiding. You're paranoid about your neighbor reporting you or someone else reporting you, and you can't use the public health care. So if you come here on the DMV, which is the one where you get a little bit of a little bit of wiggle room with the schooling situation because of the time that you have to wait for the DMV to get approved. One of the benefits with that, for at least for Americans, is the public health care, right? That's what you think is a benefit of Spain. But then you can't use it because you're not educating your kids in the Spanish system. And as soon as you go to a public doctor and they ask, what school does your kid go to? And you say, they don't, you're high risk that they're going to report you. People will ask, what happens if they report you? Well, I was never reported, but what I've heard from the Ale group is that you get a phone call or a letter and you have to go and have a meeting. At the meeting, they will tell you, okay, you're fine, case closed, or they'll say, no, you need to put your kid in school or else. And then there may be a few more meetings that you can push things with, but it's very, very stressful. It's all done in Spanish. High chance you're going to need an attorney. You're going to need to have your crap together, man. You're going to need to have be very organized and have everything that you've been doing together. And you're going to have to eventually go to court, possibly, if they don't close the case at one of the meetings. So it's just going to be very stressful for you moving here and going through that situation. Now, within Ale, there are other connections with attorneys and things that you can get into contact with who can support you. But it's still going to be difficult, and they're most likely not going to speak a lot of English. You're not going to understand the law, and it's just very difficult. Okay, so in the past, I've made plenty of blog posts on my website, burgosexperience.com, about schooling, our situation with schooling here, types of schools my kids have gone to, how I was able to get around the system and have them in school but not really in school. And I'm going to tell you, based on my experience with that and based on being on the other side of that now, where my kids are in full-time Spanish private, affordably private, but private school. I'm going to tell you why I think that you should put your kids in school. Now, every single detail of our situation that can be shared with the public is on my blog. So I'm not going to go through all the details of how I did it and where I did it and why I did it and the different problems that came up. But I am going to tell you my main points of why I think that you should put your kids in school. Okay, so Spain has its own language, its own culture, its own lifestyle, its own body language. What else did I write down that I came up with? That's it, okay? And much more, right? I have seen my kids transform from Mexican Americans to little Spaniards. And that's because they're in the school system. They're speaking Spanish, but they even say this, which Latin American Spanish speakers will say that, they're brainwashed, but they're even calling it Castellano. Yo hablo Castellano. I speak Castellano. And my oldest actually speaks Spanish with the local accent. He's the only one in the family who can speak Spanish to someone at a shop, a store, a restaurant, whatever, and not be questioned for what he's saying. Even though Spanish is my husband's native language and first language, he speaks Latin American Spanish from Honduras, and they will very often say, huh, huh, huh. They don't understand him completely because of his accent. But my son, who speaks with his Zaragozano accent, has no problem being understood here. And that's because he's speaking Spanish that he's learned at school with local teachers from our city, and he speaks it well. He speaks it with a native accent, and they have no problem understanding him. And if it wasn't for the Spanish school system, that would not be the case. By going to school, he's learned the culture, the lifestyle, because within the school system is the lifestyle. Even how they do lunch is along the lifestyle of Spain. The things they eat, the food exposure is another point that I could add to this. The language, the culture, the body language, the spoken language, the lifestyle, the holidays, all of it is learned in school here. And it's an excellent way of immersing and adapting to the language, to the culture, to the lifestyle, when you start doing the body language, okay? Both of my kids do this. Even I have picked up some of it from them. But that is because of the Spanish school system. So my argument is that if you're Spanish, do what you want, I'm not against home education like a lot of the society is here. But all I'm telling you is that it will benefit your kids greatly to be in school here. They will adapt a lot faster than they will if they're home educated, because they are immersed, truly immersed in the culture and getting the full benefit of this experience because of the school system. Now, I don't want to imply that the school system is perfect here. Note, I haven't said anything about the quality of education here. That is going to vary depending on what school you go to, okay? And you can do your own research with that. But what I am saying is it's worth the effort to find a good school here, and it's worth the effort to use the system here, whether it's private or public. I don't think you get the same benefits by sending your kids to an international school. I don't care how many Spanish speakers there are. The teachers are from another country, and they're speaking another language as the first language. They're taking Spanish as a secondary language, and it is just not the same level of immersion. So it's head and shoulders above to actually put your kids into a Spanish school. Now, I'm going to tell you something else, okay? The culture here is not very open to home education. You will be ridiculed, you will be questioned, you will be looked at like you're funny, you will be accused of endangering your child, you might have the police called on you, you might have social services called on you. You will, at a minimum, be threatened with those things. You will be questioned even if you go to the grocery store. Going to the grocery store here with my youngest son, okay, when he was 2, was a whole situation because the cashier was always asking, why isn't he in school? He's 2, that's why he's not in school. But the culture here believes that kids should be in school like at the first moment. It's not like, oh, this isn't for me, but other people can do it. No. They think here, this is how you do it. There are no other options. Okay, so it is going to be very hard for you as an adult to adapt to this country and to immerse if you don't have something to say when someone asks you what school do your kids go to. It's the very first question that people ask. You know, in the United States, for example, people will say, the small talk is, oh, the weather. Right? Or where do you work? What type of work do you do? Or yeah, the weather, is it cold there? Is it hot there? This is happening, that's happening. But here, the first question someone asks you is, oh, where do your kids go to school? You know, then they process some judgment with that answer. Okay, so the very last point of the argument is something that people often don't think of right away. And they really find it unbelievable, actually. But if down the road you think that you're going to move here and maybe you have an Ibero-American citizenship, maybe you have, because this is also very popular, maybe you have a citizenship, you know, from a Ibero-American country or the Philippines, and you're going to come over here and you're planning to do the 2-year thing, and you're thinking that you're going to homeschool for that 2 years, you're going to apply for citizenship, and then you're going to leave or whatever, you know. In order to apply for citizenship, your kids have to be in school. You have to show proof that they are in school. Okay, so it's just super, super, super difficult. Now, on the NLV, let's just say that you decide to jump around. You put your kids in school, you take them out, you know, for every renewal, you put them in, and then you take them out. It's possible there are people who do that. But then when it comes to citizenship, you're going to need it again. And what if they ask for proof of attendance? What if they ask for historical, you know, existence in that school? So you really, really, really have to consider if it's worth it or not. Is it worth it to be changing their routine, you know, every year, every 2 years, and then suddenly when they need citizenship, they're going to have to go into the school system again? Is it worth it to sacrifice their opportunity for immersion and to, you know, make friends with people in another country? You know, I know this is a hot topic, and I made a video on TikTok, and it was about my proof of why homeschooling is not acceptable here. My proof of homeschooling not being acceptable here was the fact that the library is closed on weekday mornings, which is totally contrary to what you find in the United States. When you homeschool there, a lot of people utilize the libraries for their activities, and they're open all day long in the mornings with tons of kids' activities. Even during the day, homeschool groups go there. They even have homeschool programs at some libraries. And here, there's absolutely nothing. The library's not even open. And that was my point. And just the mere mention that I had ever had any experience with homeschooling, or that I was even talking about homeschooling, these people in the comments have left incredible levels of hate and condemnation there. And I don't care, okay? But I'm telling you that is what you will face. And I'm someone who has lived here for almost 5 years and has my kids in Spanish school, okay? They don't care. They're just like dropping the gauntlet, accusing me of home education, threatening me with all kinds of things, okay? So it's definitely not something that is acceptable, and that's like another proof of it, right? It's just a very singular way of thinking here when it comes to education. Okay, so I'm going to close this out by saying, I know there's going to be some one or two people who are going to say, I managed to homeschool here, in the South, there's a homeschool community and I get by with it. You get by with it, right? I would ask them what their circumstances are, if they have the same circumstances as you. What is their timing? Are they doing that right now? Or did they do that 20 years ago? Was it their personal experience or someone they know? Because people will stress that someone they know did this. And also, are they EU citizens or Spanish citizens who are saying, oh yeah, you can do it? Because these people, they don't even consider the situation with visa holders. People who have to have permission to be here and what the requirements are. They have no idea what their requirements are. I'm telling you the requirement to be in school, especially for the non-lucrative visa. The DMV is a different situation, and probably you could get by with it with the DMV, but you would be getting by with it and you would not be benefiting from the public health care system. And when it comes to citizenship, you would not be able to get it for your kids without them being in school. So regardless, they have to go to school. Now, someone has left a comment on TikTok telling me that there is a program here. I think it's called Educadis. I'm going to look it up again. I'm going to post a link in the description. This woman has told me that this is a Spanish teacher who has organized this school. And if you're registered with the school, it gives you what you need to be able to homeschool. I'm not 100% how it works. I don't have experience with it. And this is only hearsay from her, something that she uses. So I'm going to put this in the description below, along with the link to the Constitution, so that you can check it out and see if it's something that would work for you. But you need to remember still that even in that situation, the kids are at home and they're not being exposed fully to the lifestyle, the culture, the vocal language, the body language, and the holidays, and the local accent. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, or if you have another topic you want me to talk about that has to do with Spain, let me know. Leave it in the comments below. Please subscribe, please like, please share, please watch more videos. I am still trying to accumulate the 1,000 subscribers needed to fully monetize my channel. And I also need to I'm about 350 hours short of the 4,000 hours that I also need to monetize fully. So watching the videos all the way through, sharing my content, and making sure that you subscribe, like, and engage with my channel, it really helps the algorithm so that my stuff goes out further. And as always, you can follow me everywhere. I have my blog, I have Instagram, I have my Facebook profile, which you can look up, Ashley Burgos, Burgos, like the city in Spain. I also just created a Facebook group for moving to Spain and living here, where I'm going to try to consolidate some information because it kind of like spread out all over the place. So you could look to join that. I can put it in the description as well. And I just created a TikTok as a way of trying to grow my YouTube channel. Okay, so you can look me up across the board, whatever your favorite platform is. And I really appreciate your support. And I look forward to talking to you again.